The Doug local user groups called Doug Meetups are growing. Find your local meetup today by visiting the Doug Hub on the left menu bar. Please welcome our heroic sponsor, USTPay, and their heroic speakers, Wade Tetsuka and Adil Nowsherwan. Today, they will be presenting on understanding the payments ecosystem in Microsoft Dynamics Business Central.
Welcome everybody to this session of understanding the payments ecosystem in Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. The two speakers for this session, myself, Wade Tetsuka, I'm president of US Transactions Corporation, and our product is USTPay. Adil Nowsherwan, he's the VP of Product Development and our lead Business Central software engineer. These are the four topics that we're going to cover in this brief session. Number one is an overview and really an illustration to show you what the payments ecosystem looks like and how a solution, really a trending solution called a payments orchestration would fit in within the Microsoft Dynamics platform. Third, we're going to look at what this actually looks like inside Business Central, what this solution would actually look like in Business Central, or Adil will present that part. And then finally, I'm going to show you very briefly how the cost of credit card processing actually looks like to you as the customer. First of all, how does the payment ecosystem look like? We use a couple of illustrations to show this. We start on the far left-hand side. You are the merchant. You're the Business Central user. You are an enterprise accepting credit card payments from a customer on the far left-hand side. So that circle on the left, you are called a merchant. So it doesn't matter whether you're a retail store, whether you're a restaurant, or whether you're a B2B enterprise, business-to-business enterprise, selling to Fortune 500 companies or to other companies across the world globally, you are considered a merchant because you accept credit cards. And ideally, you want to be doing all of these payment transactions within your Business Central platform. The way that's accomplished in the typical setup within Business Central or any other software platform, you have what's called a PCI compliant gateway that's integrated into Business Central. So in this example, we'll say authorize.net, but there's many others: CyberSource, ChargeLogic, Card Connect, BluePay, PayFlow Pro, which is PayPal, Stripe, and many, many others. So there's literally dozens. They are the user interface within Business Central, or they are the connector that you would use within Business Central to collect the credit card information, and then they would then pass that data on to one of the big clearing houses in the United States: First Data, TSYS, Elavon, WorldPay, Vantiv, and a couple of others. They would then send the data to Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or Discover. And then the data goes back to your what's called merchant service provider. Many times that could be the ISV partner itself. And then they would make the deposit back into your account as a batch deposit every day. This traditional setup we call a closed or monoline solution, which basically means that you're limited to the one integration that's been created. So for example, in this case, you're only able to use authorize.net as soon as your business requires that you need other features or functions that an authorize.net might not be able to fulfill. Then you have to go out to the app source and find another solution that's integrated with Business Central, find another ISV partner that would fulfill that or supports that ISV solution. And now you've got 2, 3, maybe even 4 different ISV providers, 3 or 4 different gateways that you need to use. The solution to this, and the trend that is more in line with what's happening today, is what we call an open or modern solution. Again, you are on the left-hand side as the merchant using Business Central as your platform, but we now have a middleware inserted here that functions between the actual PCI compliant gateway and the Business Central platform. This middleware, in this case, it's Spreedly, but there are others. This middleware is a card vaulting solution, a tokenization service, and what they also do is manage the connections to not just one gateway, but to over 120 different payment gateways and processors. So basically, with one integration into Business Central, one ISV solution, you are able to access more than 120 different gateways and processors. You can bring your own processor that you already have set up from your previous software ERP that you were using before, whatever your bank that you're using as your service provider. You can continue to use that. All you're doing is selecting the right gateway that you were previously using, and you're often running and in business. So Adil is going to show you more about what this looks like in the next few minutes here. But this is the difference between what I previously showed, a closed monoline solution versus an open modern solution, which gives you a lot more flexibility and choices. Obviously, you're not going to use all 120, but from a developer perspective, this is a dream because the developer wants to only have to deal with one ISV solution, one integration, which would allow the capability to then choose whatever gateway or processor you would want to work with. So I'm going to turn it over now to Adil to let him show you what this would look like within Business Central.
Thank you, Wade. So the first screen we're going to show you is basically the screen that allows you to select the gateway you want. And if you sort of put your eyes towards the first line in the description column, you see Moneris is an example. So let's say your customer has a requirement in Canada. Moneris is a popular gateway that they use. WorldPay is another popular gateway. Priority, Patriot. So we've got several of them listed here. But the idea here is that we can provision this within minutes for your clients if they have a need to switch from one to the other. Of course, there is a little bit of testing involved, obviously, for everything. But, they can be up and running on a different provider. It also allows us to cover scenarios where, maybe you've acquired a company and then they want to use their current gateway. Or maybe you're branching out into other countries and you have a presence there. So we can cover all of these examples and scenarios. This next slide is there, and to kind of illustrate, these modern solutions today, of course, have to be secure. And so the important fields on the screen here are the credit card number field and the CVV number field. And if you think of Business Central as essentially a web page that's connecting to some website, in this example, the web page we are displaying where you would enter your credit card information is actually split between sort of two websites. So the credit card number and the CVV are coming from our partner called Spreedly. So they're behind something called an iframe. And you can almost think of it as those two fields were not created by any code we wrote. They have been rendered by Spreedly. And so only Spreedly knows what you're entering into those fields. We or Microsoft would have no way of knowing what you're entering into those fields. And that's how it makes it secure. Once you've entered the field and you click the verify button, the only thing we get back is what's called a token. And a token is just, random alphanumeric characters that we save in Business Central. And then later on, we can use as a reference for Spreedly to know what credit card to use. So security is the important part. Using an iframe allows it to be secure so that, no one else knows what's going on.
And I'll just interject there real briefly that going back to the flow chart that I showed you earlier, where Adil is referring to Spreedly. Spreedly was that middleware, that additional step that we added into the open modern solution that does, as Adil is saying, the vaulting, card vaulting, and the tokenization service. and then they are making the call out to the specific end gateway, whether that's a Moneris, a WorldPay, a Paytrace, a Priority, Stripe, whatever. Spreedly is making then that call out to them according to your desire.
This next slide, you'll notice that it now is a web page that allows you to enter banking information. One of the trends we are seeing is more and more people want to be able to use ACH as a form of payment. And through this solution, basically, you're turning ACH information almost like a credit card. And so here you can capture the bank account number and the routing number, and then save it. Again, you're saving it at Spreedly's vault. And all you have to do is then subsequently you can treat it as a, Visa or MasterCard, basically, except that behind the scenes, it's actually doing an ACH type of transaction, which, is much lower from a fee perspective. And that's why we're seeing a lot of clients adapting and wanting to do more and more ACH. The next thing here on this slide is kind of give you a little bit of a glimpse into what actually happens behind the scenes. And so we're looking at a posted sales invoice, and I've kind of tried my best to show you what we capture behind the scenes and store in the system when we charge a credit card. So if you look at the arrow that goes from the card transaction history and then points to the transaction ID, this is the ID that is returned anytime a credit card is stored. And the reason I put it there is to kind of help you understand, like, let's say somebody has to do a refund for this invoice. When we do a refund and you create the sales credit memo in Business Central, we are not actually using the credit card that was originally used. We are behind the scenes using this transaction ID, and it's what's called a referenced refund. And this is a fraud protection feature. Make sure that somebody can't just create a credit memo, select a credit card, and sort of give themselves, $1 million refund, so to speak. And that's why it's important that you have that feature in your system. Another feature that, people want is the ability to send their customers an email. It's called payment link, and customer clicks, they pay for their particular invoice, and magic happens, and the invoice or the payment is recorded in Business Central. So we have this feature. What you're looking at there is an example of an email. Of course, this would have your branding, but the user or your customer would get the email. They click on the pay invoice button. They're redirected to a website where they can enter or select a previously entered credit card. They can enter their banking information. So they have a choice of how they pay. And once they've paid, in Business Central, we get a notification. We use that notification to close out the open receivable. So, this flow is entirely automated. There is no need for anybody to have to touch or record the payment that was made online. One more screen just to kind of give you a little insight behind the scenes, what happens. We have a feature called Level 3. Level 3 is a feature that kind of helps you lower the fees that are charged to you. But what happens when you do a Level 3 is we're sending to the Visa and the MasterCards of the world detailed information about what was on the invoice. So as you can see, we have the item number, the cost, meaning what you charged your customer, a little bit of a description. And the reason this is important is this is then available to your customer so they can see it on through their app their banking app, they can see this information and have a much higher level of certainty that this was something they purchased and that it is not a fraudulent charge on their credit card.
And I'll also share a little bit more at the end about how this actually lowers the fees for you as the end user in Business Central when you're accepting credit cards. I did want to make one little side note on the previous slide where Adil was explaining about being able to pay the invoice. There is the option also to accept not just credit card, but when you pay the invoice, you can have the customer also choose ACH or credit card. So that feature continues through with the invoice link.
This screen basically, again, points out to, more and more, of course, people have websites where they have their products, their e-commerce website. And so you need the same solution to be able to work in your e-commerce system that you have in Business Central and to work across your choice of gateway. And so we provide that capability. Here you can see in this example, because we're using Spreedly, what happens is your e-commerce platform is directly presenting to your customer that same checkout iframe where the customer enters the credit card and the other information. They can then authorize or even charge the customer directly. And then depending on the flow you need, that information can flow into Business Central. Because you have an e-commerce platform, of course, it's creating the sales order for you. And then if you are then charging the credit card or authorizing the credit card on the e-commerce platform, that same information is flowing into Business Central. And, we can then later on capture that credit card if you choose just to do an authorization on the e-commerce platform. And so again, it's completely integrated that way, allowing you to kind of have the same point or gateway that you use from both systems.
As you know, fees can be anywhere from, let's say, around 2.5%, 3%, 3.5%, sometimes 4 or 5%. So how do you get this such a wide variation in fees when you're the merchant, when you're the company that's accepting credit card payments? Why is there such a large variation in fees? And I'm just going to cover it very briefly, but ultimately there's only three buckets of cost or fees, even though a statement may have 5 or 6 or 7 pages long and lengthy itemization of fees. But ultimately, there's only 3 buckets that the fees fall into. One is called interchange, which is the first bucket. The second is called Visa and MasterCard dues and assessments. And the third is called the processor fees. So the first bucket, interchange, is typically the largest bucket. And this is the percentage rate of the fees. So let's say if you're being charged overall 3%, maybe about 2.5% will actually will be interchanged, 2.5 out of the 3%. So the vast majority of the fees are interchange. And these are the fees that go to the bank that issued the card. So for example, if the card holder, your customer is paying you and they're using a Capital One bank, right? What's in your wallet? Or let's say they're using a Chase issued credit card or a Wells Fargo credit card, whatever, it doesn't matter. That bank that issued the card, that bank that issued the Visa or MasterCard, they collect this interchange fee. So they're going to collect the majority of the fees. Why? Because they have to pay for the rewards that they give to the cardholder. They have to pay for the float that they give to the cardholder. They have to cover the cost of credit risk if a cardholder defaults on his or her, credit card statement. You as the merchant, you're still going to be collecting the money. But if they decide not to pay their credit card bill, you're not on the hook for that. So all of these, this is why interchange is high, because it has to be covered by that bank. The second bucket is called dues and assessments. It's about 0.15%. And this is actually the fee that goes to Visa or MasterCard. So this is how Visa or MasterCard gets paid. We think that the whole full 3% goes to Visa or MasterCard. In fact, only about 0.15% goes to Visa and MasterCard. As I said, the vast majority goes to the bank that issued the card. So Visa and MasterCard, why do they earn this? Well, because they are the ones that manage the brand. They are the ones that manage the brand and the whole network. So, and the platform that Visa and MasterCard run on. So basically, this is what they charge for their fee. They have no credit risk. They don't give any benefits to the card holder. That's all done by the bank. So Visa and MasterCard are basically marketing organizations and processing platforms for the banking system, and this is how they earn their money. So 0.15% to 0.17%. The final bucket is the processor fee, and this is where your merchant service provider, the company that's providing you the services or giving you the quote for credit card processing, they're going to quote a processor fee. It's often called a discount rate. And this is a negotiable amount. Whereas the other two are fixed amounts, this is the one where you are able to negotiate. And this is what would allow the fluctuation from, up to 5 or 6% in many cases. You really shouldn't be that high, but this is where that would come from. And I'm going to very quickly show you some examples. I'm not going to go through this in much detail because of the length of time, but we have webinars that go through this in much larger detail so that you're able to understand your statements. But these are statements that show all the different card types and all the different rates, those interchange rates that are applied to the different types of cards. So different types of credit cards, business cards, corporate cards, purchasing cards, consumer cards, rewards cards, they all have different rates associated with them. And that's what determines what percentage rate you're paying. Debit cards are going to be very low in percentage. The Visa and MasterCard dues and assessments, and there's other fees like acquirer processor fees. You can see their FANF fees. These are all fees that are assessed by Visa or MasterCard. They're also non-negotiable, but they'll appear on your statement with the terminologies that you kind of see here. And then finally, the processor fee, the third bucket, they often appear as what's called the discount rate. And you can see in this one, it's 25/100%. This one's 10/100%. This one's 49/100%. So about 0.5%. So this could vary depending on how it's negotiated and what your merchant service provider is quoting you. So those are the three buckets. And we have a more extensive webinar to go through all of this, including Adil, who does a live demo so you can do Q&A throughout the demo of how this would look in Business Central. But for any follow-up questions that you have, this is the leadership of our team, myself, Adil, Kate Coffey Bacon, who's our VP of Marketing and does a lot in the Microsoft Dynamics space, Michaela Johnson, who is our Senior Director of Client Support. And we are a boutique service firm. We specialize in the Microsoft practice. So our solution as an ISV solution is in AppSource and available to anybody that would like to utilize it. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. And we look forward to meeting all of you at some point here in the future. Thank you very much. All right, thanks everybody for listening in. If you have any questions, and there was some feedback on the chat, we did put some additional information, but if there's any questions you have, we have exactly 6 minutes. And then if I know in previous sessions, there weren't that many questions, so it's up to you. We can always take questions also in the other Business Central room afterwards. If there's not, I mean, we can certainly let people go just for the recording's sake. Adil, if you want to just share what's one or two things that you're really excited about Business Central, about what it can do with credit card pay or payments in general for customer collections.
Yeah, I think these days, like you said earlier, the ACH feature, being able to do a debit ACH charge, is a great way. We have a prospect, that basically processes 600 checks every day, and they're trying to move their customers. These are loyal customers away from having to charge or process a check, every week, 600, 700 of them. And the savings are beyond the fees. It's also in the fact that they've got a dedicated person doing this because of all the labor required.
And someone asked, what about level 2 and level 3 fees? How does that compare, or how does that lower the fees by how much in magnitude? Level 3 rates can lower the fee by 0.81%, so almost a full percent, which is quite substantial. I mean, that's about 30% of your total fees. So that's a lot. So we have 4 minutes, and anything else? And very good point, Adil, about starting to use more features like ACH collection, which is also known as e-check in the US. And that's all built into Business Central. So it's all automated. As soon as the payment comes in, it's posted immediately to the outstanding receivables, against the outstanding receivables and against the invoice. So it takes a lot of heavy lifting off of you. Okay. Looks like there's no other questions. So, and I don't have anything else. I did put into the chat just what we know about what are the most common issues that people have with credit card acceptance. Fees are number 1. Customer service are either number 2 or number 3. And certainly the third issue is batch reconciliation, the time it takes, because that deposit comes into your bank account as a lump sum, and the bank is not able to tell you the breakout of that. So if you have a lot of transactions per day, it really makes it complicated. So what about international payments? Adil, here's a question. Do you use, so international payments, yes, that can be handled through payment orchestrations where you can use different, like Adil is a good one, WorldPay. Those will handle a lot of international payments. Adil, can you answer this one? Do you use a journal to post the cash receipts?
Yeah, sure. So behind the scenes, we are using a journal, but the difference is, or the cash receipt journal, I should say. But the difference is that we create and post that journal as part of the sales invoicing process. So when you have a sales order and you generate the invoice, all of that is happening all at the same time.
Awesome. And in our last 2 minutes, I know Adil likes to talk about the feature within Business Central, the prepayments, which many people may not understand how that works. Maybe Adil can use.
It's my favorite comment. The thing I'll tell the audience is, if you are an old NAV or even a Business Central user, and you probably have had a bad experience with the prepayment feature, now may be the time for you to look at it again. I think it's very streamlined, and it works great for many scenarios.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks a lot. Our time is up. So again, thank you everybody for attending. Adil, thanks a lot for everything that you do for the Business Central community, and enjoy the rest of the conference, everybody.